name's Lucky S. Michaels. I am the director of MCC NY Homeless Youth Services. When I found MCC New York, I knew that this was going to be my home. This was the only place that I felt safe. I was able to then not only come out about my sexuality, my gender identity, but ultimately about my crystal meth use, about my alcoholism, in a way that has been healing.
My name is Pat Bumgardner, and I'm the senior pastor at Metropolitan Community Church of New York. I've been the senior pastor here for well over 20 years, and in that time, we've seen a lot of epidemics in the community, among them HIV and AIDS, of course, and then also more recently the sort of peaking of meth use in particular. MCC's long-term experience with focusing its work in the LGBTQI community gives us a really solid base for being the people who try to break down some of the barriers between the spiritual community and the wider community around us when it comes to meth use.
Here at MCC, I found a difference in the way that crystal meth is treated. From going to my pastor one-on-one and being able to say, you know, I am an IV drug user. You know, I have, used every single day for a year. And being able to say that to my pastor and not have a judgment, or going or talking in a group here at the church about crystal meth use, and not having a sense of well, how many days have you been clean? Are you high right now? That's not ever really the precedence. It's a judgment-free sense of community, of, okay, let's meet you where you're at, and let's figure out what you need to be spiritually whole.
I think that people in general have a lot of myths around drug users and who they are and how they behave and what can or cannot be expected of them in terms of being productive citizens or that kind of thing. Not everyone who uses drugs, and certainly not everyone who uses crystal meth, is homeless, on the streets, has hit rock bottom, has no place left to go. Plenty of people who use meth in one way or another with some kind of regularity or irregularity are high-functioning people in our society. You cannot bring your presumptions or your judgments about that to this situation and have any hope of creating a safe space where people can come together and address what meth use is about and how we together might make healthier choices. I think people have the stereotype that, people using drugs, including meth, can't hold jobs, can't be in a relationship, spend all of their available cash on drugs and end up on the streets. And that's just not true. I think it's important to unmask our myths and deconstruct them. One of the primary reasons, I think, is because myths about anything allow us to create boundaries, us and them, and to separate ourselves or create distinct spaces where we feel like we belong, or to value ourselves more highly than someone else who has made different choices or has different addictions. I think the goal in deconstructing myths around meth is to allow people who are totally unfamiliar to have safe space to learn, people who are users to have safe space to talk about what they're doing, why, what their needs are, and people who are in some kind of relationship with users to have safe space to talk about what it's like for them to be in relationship with someone who is using meth.
Seeing a congregation like this that is so accepting of anybody regardless of who they are, has really made it easier for, both myself as well as others that I know that are crystal meth addicts and those that are looking to become sober from their crystal meth use. It translates very easily as, well, if everybody else is accepted here, then I can be too, just the way that I am. I can talk to other congregants about my crystal meth use. I can talk to the pastor about my crystal meth use, and even though the pastor has never touched crystal meth, they are coming from a place of acceptance.
I think MCC in general offers or has a goal of offering safe space for people to be who they are without judgment. People come here not only from a range of religious backgrounds, but just a range of cultural, social, economic, class backgrounds. So you just have a mass of diversity before you every Sunday. Who you are has intrinsic value and worth. But the value or worth society gives to that is just that, a judgment society has made, and does not necessarily reflect your intrinsic value and worth, or who you are in the sight of God. So we do a lot of work around what I would say is giving people a healthy foundation to understand who they are, and that the core of who they are is good and has value and worth in God's sight. And whether or not they feel good about every choice they've ever made in their life, God continues to feel good about them and to be there present with them and willing to work with them in any kind of transition they might want to make.
It never ceases to amaze me what Metropolitan Community Church has been able to do for LGBTQI individuals. It really caters to those that have been disenfranchised, that feel as though they have been cast out. And, similarly with crystal meth use, you can be a user and you can talk to other congregants and the pastors and not feel like you're gonna be less than anybody else. The more those that are engaging in crystal meth use feel as though they are disenfranchised or cut off from the community, the more they will cut themselves off or not talk about their crystal meth use and be more damaging to themselves and others. And so the more that you can make them feel comfortable and equal and special, and as though they have just as much of the divine within them as you do, the better.
I think that MCC in general is a natural to turn to in terms of help for the meth crisis. MCC's experience in dealing long-term with the sense of isolation and being cut off and unvalued and undervalued is the basis for dealing with people who are living with meth, whether they are users or somehow related to people who are using. We know long-term how to deal with people's sense of isolation and being cut off and undervalued. And it's not like you have to have a whole new set of skills or a whole new understanding of humanity or a whole new understanding of the love of God being something universal that embraces all people to bring to the table. You just have to do the same thing you're trying to encourage people who are in the meth community to do. You have to bring who you are and what you have to offer to the table in an open and honest way and allow that to be in the forefront of the discussion. You have to be yourself. That, I think, is the most saving thing anyone can do for themselves or for anyone else. Because when I do that, I make it safe space for you to be in my presence.
MCC has really been an open and accepting church and community for absolutely everybody. And so in spite of my being HIV positive, AIDS positive, and a crystal meth user, I am still 110% a part of the community and have the spirit of the divine within me.
Assume wherever you are, even if you're not in a metropolitan area, assume that crystal meth use is alive and well in your community. And don't turn a blind eye, a deaf ear, or a closed heart to that reality. Assume that you should be speaking about this, including it in your sermon illustrations. Assume that you should be addressing this when you speak publicly in the community. Assume that you should be doing something that lets people out there know this is safe space for you. Everybody, as I said earlier, has intrinsic value and worth in the sight of God. Everybody has meaning and purpose in this world. You're here for a purpose. I'm here for a purpose. The key is finding that purpose and supporting it. And sometimes we've made choices or decisions along the way that have enabled that to develop. And sometimes we've made choices and decisions that have stagnated the development of that purpose. And the church is a great place to just put all of that out on the table and look at it and get support for the things that will enable you to become who God's calling you to be.